From Battlestar Galactica to Smallville to CSI to Dexter, and then we even heard him on Star Wars Unleashed and the Cartoon Network's Star Wars The Clone Wars. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Sam Witwer.
Keep this here just in case.
Well, first of all, again, thank you so much for joining us here at Comicon.
Thank you.
Enjoying the weather?
It's really cold in here, man.
Well, in the fact is that outside.
Well, yeah, they have to let me outside first. And then I will enjoy the weather.
First question is, I want to start with your earlier career. I know that with Battlestar Galactica as Lieutenant Crashdown. Was it always in your interest to be in film? Because I know that you had a little bit of influence in music, and I think that you were also in a band. So, what persuades you to continue film? Or do you still do a little bit of
desperation? Yeah, I was when I was a kid, I thought, oh, I'm going to be an actor. And then as I got a little bit older and got to high school, I actually became a little bit more realistic about things, and I was like, no, I'm going to be a rock star. So I had my band, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to play with my band, and no matter what happened, that was going to be that. And then my parents were like, you should go to college, and I was like, have you seen my grades? And they said, yes, but if you audition, you do school plays and stuff, if you audition for the drama division of certain colleges, they're a little bit lenient on grades. And I'm like, how lenient? And so one of the schools that I auditioned for actually didn't look at your grades at all, and that was Juilliard, and that was the school that accepted me. So, so at that point I was like, but I never said I wanted to be an actor. Like, why would I go to Juilliard? It doesn't make any sense. And so I was like, I had long hair, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm going to Juilliard. The FBI's gonna pay me to learn how to surf. And then Juilliard says, that's not how you talk. Yeah, it is. I'm like, no, yes it is. Yes it is. So then they started teaching me things about how to walk and talk and do actor things. And then by the time that I got kicked out, I was like, I may as well try to use this training that I've used for 2 years.
Were you really kicked out?
Well, no, I was asked to leave. I said, okay, I'll give you guys a freebie. I'm getting it. No, I mean, what it was is that it wasn't that I was a troublemaker. I actually got away with murder at that school. The teachers all kind of loved me, believe it or not. But what it was that I wanted to do film and TV, and back then that was like a dirty word in Juilliard. It isn't these days. These days you can, they've realized that actors, as much as anyone, like to eat, and so you can't just do theater. There's just no way. So they realized that like we should probably allow for people to do film and television, and that was what I wanted to do. So when they were asking me, and they were teaching me about voice and speech stuff, that was interesting. When they wanted to teach me how to dance, I was like, I don't want to. I mean, it's funny, some of the things that they taught, I'm more amenable to now than I was back then. They were like, hey, sing this show tune. And I'm like, what? I'm not singing that show tune. Let me sing Pearl Jam or something. But these days, if someone wanted me to sing like Moon or something like that, that's like, oh, no, that's actually kind of cool. But I'm much older now.
Well, you were a lead singer, correct, in your band? Yeah. Well, what kind of music was?
Oh, there are me spoken. That's not how I sing. Pearl Jam concert at Phoenix Comicon. No, the music thing was always my first love, and so when I became an actor, music was what I did in downtown while you're waiting for the phone to ring. And so I got to produce and record and do an album and stuff, and play gigs with my friends, and then suddenly acting work picked up quite a bit, and I haven't been able to get back to finish my second album, which has been a real bummer. But it's a good problem to have because they actually pay you more to be working than not working.
So in your portrayal as Neil Perry in Dexter, you said that it gave you much credibility. Pretty much it kind of pushed you and made you who you are in your current success. Why is that?
Because before I played Neil Perry on Dexter, all that any casting director would ever see me for was some big, dumb thug. That was it. That was it. Hey, we got a role. Well, can Sam come and audition? No, Sam's too big, dumb, and thuggish. Couldn't possibly. So with Dexter, they were like, hey, we want a small, squirrely computer nerd for this role. So I'm calling my agent and saying, look, I build computers. I know all about that. Like, come on. I'm a trained actor. Let me prove that I can do stuff. And they were anxious to have me do that too. So I went and got a bunch of loose-fitting clothing, bought glasses, and walked in and kind of slumped and stuff. And everyone that I was auditioning against was quite a bit smaller than me. I mean, I'm making myself sound like I'm 6'8", right? I'm 6'1". But, so huge. So I went in and gave this audition and felt very insecure about it because I wasn't doing myself at all. And then asked to be seen again, actually. And the casting director, I didn't know this, but they'd already decided to hire me. And I'm coming in going, I can do it better. Let me just do it one more time. And they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah. So I did it again, but they still hired me. I didn't end up losing myself the job. But then they hired me, but they didn't tell me that the Neil Perry character was going to have such a sort of dramatic turn, and he was going to be sort of like, they wanted kind of a Kevin Spacey from 7 vibe, that, because the whole thing was that, no spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen Dexter season 1. Come on, catch up, guys. But the whole thing was there was an ice truck killer, and they were actually introducing the ice truck killer, played by another Juilliard guy, Christian Camargo, and they were introducing him elsewhere in the story. Well, if you didn't have a red herring at that point, that really where you thought you knew who the ice truck killer was, everyone was going to be sure, oh, it's Christian Camargo. Why would they introduce another character if it wasn't the ice truck killer, right? And so my job on the show was to get everyone off his scent, was to be so sort of disturbing and scary in a weird kind of way that people would be convinced that he was innocent. And then after we did that, after that job happened, after those 3 episodes aired, the great thing was casting directors would see me for anything at that point. Just anything, or any kind of role they would see me for, which is nice.
Now, given that you had some acting career, you had your face in the camera, and then you branched into voice acting. Yeah. I'm a little bit particular to Star Wars. I'm a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, right?
Was it something? Obviously, it's different being in front of a microphone, having your voice recorded and actually portraying something. But what helped you along the way to either do the voice in Unleashed and then from there on moving on to an actual TV series?
Well, people maybe don't totally understand this, but Unleashed was an on-camera game with some voiceover elements. So all those cutscenes, those were shot with motion capture cameras, and the other actors were there with us. And so that was familiar territory. And I'm running around, with like a microphone in my hand, pretending it's a lightsaber. Never convinced me to betray my master. And, at that point, the director's like, this is ridiculous. Someone go downstairs and get this guy a lightsaber. We're at Lucasfilm, for God's sakes. We have these things here. We have tons of them. Go get them one. This is embarrassing. But the voiceover elements came about 2 things. One, there was a lot of stuff that wasn't in those cutscenes. When you're playing the game, the character is saying things. And that, so I was in a voiceover booth and I had to learn how to do that. I wasn't very good at it to begin with. moments where I'm playing Force Unleashed, I'm like, whoa, I didn't really think that through. But it was that. It was the voiceover elements in that game, and then it was also convincing Hayden Blackman to hire me as the Emperor for them. So, I mean, because I was like, are you getting Ian McDermott to do it? And he's like, no. I'm like, well, then probably she'd get me. And he was like, no, I'm not doing that. Why would I do that? I'm like, because I do it good, And then eventually, I remember my buddy David Collins, who was the lead sound designer, and he also played Proxy in The Force Unleashed. But he stole the role. They had some celebrity in mind that I won't tell you who it was, who would have done it, by the way. But just David did it really well, and he did it first. So when we were doing these read-throughs, David was doing Proxy really, really well until eventually they're like, no, that's Proxy. It's kind of like Anthony Daniels wasn't supposed to be the voice of C-3PO, but people like Richard Dreyfuss are like, I can't do it better than him. This is awesome. So anyway, David says to me, David Collins is saying, look, man, we're going to do a read-through of Force Unleashed. Don't do the Emperor, because let's record it first, and I'll tweak it, and we'll make it sound more like Ian McDermott. I'm like, okay. So I didn't prepare it at all. So then we're about to go into the read-through, and Hayden Blackman's like, hey, Sam. Hey, so you think you do the Emperor, huh? Hayden's like this big football player guy, right? He's the lead of the project. And that's why Jim Lakota, by the way, is the football player in Jedi Masters, right? Football coach. Come out there and get him! Tear that Star Destroyer out of the sky! That's Hayden Blackman right there. So, but Hayden's like, yeah, go ahead, do it. And I'm like, what? And I'm looking at David like, I would have practiced this. He told me not to, he told me not to. So then I just launched into the Emperor, and then Hayden said, okay, well, I guess maybe you'll do it. So that was fun. It was a lot of fun. And then I ended up doing the Emperor for other projects after that, and may yet do the Emperor in the future. Who knows?
How do you do the Emperor?
Very carefully. Okay, there was a line. You have to really warm up, you know what I mean? But there was a line in Force Unleashed. Because the thing with the Emperor is that he's funny, and I don't know that people think about the Emperor as being funny, but he is. He's really, really funny. I'm afraid the deflector sheet will be quite operate, He's got a great sense of humor when things are going his way, right? So there was this Force Unleashed passage that Hayden wrote. And by the way, Hayden Blackman's a great writer. I was reading these Emperor lines, and I'm like, he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand how to write for the Emperor. The Emperor wouldn't say this. Oh, wait a second. Ian McDermott is a much better actor than me. Okay. And then I looked at the script and I'm like, no, this is how the Emperor does it. I'm just not that good. So then, but there's this one passage. He's got the rebels all in front of him, and he's got them. He's got all the guys he was trying to capture, and he's got them there, and he's about to tell. They've been plotting against him, so he's going to tell them what's happening to him. And I think he says, "You've all been branded traitors to the Empire. You will be interrogated, tortured. You will give me the names of your friends and your allies, and then you will die." When I got a laugh for that in one of the read-throughs, I knew that was right. Because the Emperor is actually, he does have that sense of humor and that beautiful smile.
One last question, and then we can go ahead and open it up to the audience. So if you guys want to start lining up on my left-hand side, you can. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with some episodes that might be coming out 2015 for Star Wars, Episode 7. They're going to start filming some of those. Now, seeing that you have some background in acting, and seeing that you have some background in voice acting, do you think perhaps you might want to throw in your hat and see if maybe either 7, 8, or 9 could be a possibility of...
Just trying to figure out where JJ's kids go to school so I can kidnap them. No, it's, you know what it is it's like they're going to... They, as I understand it, haven't started the casting process yet, and I certainly would be interested in auditioning, for sure, absolutely. I mean, I would really like those movies to be good. You know? And so I just really hope that they cast a wide net and find the right people. You know, I don't know that everyone here, for example, is a Star Wars fan. You know, Star Wars has always been cast, like, who was Mark Hamill, who was Harrison Ford, who was Carrie Fisher? They weren't anyone, you know? Like, they just happened to have the right personalities. And they had big personalities. And I think JJ is smart enough to realize that he needs to cast some big personalities for those films.
Perfect. All right, we can go ahead and have the first question.
Oh, that's a great question. No, I think that...
Use the force.
Yoto, who are you?
Someone who loves you.
It sounds like a bounty hunter over there. What's going on?
Hi, Sam.
Hello.
Thank you for coming to Comicon, by the way.
Thank you for...
I have a question about Sally and Aiden. Do you think there's going to be a possible love connection between them? That's the vibe I got from this past season.
Okay, if someone were to ask me this after season 2, I'd say, no. And they'd say, well, the British season did. And no, it's not our thing. I wouldn't understand those two characters together. After this season, I don't know. It has now cast me into doubt, you know? I mean, I think both me and Megan Rath were kind of, you know, a little bit surprised by some of the scenes that we were given to do, and then also what would come out of these scenes, because I think me and her had more fun on the set than we've ever had together. Because, you know, season 2, I was largely away from the other cast members, so season 3, I was with them all the time. And I think we were pretty aggressive when we went into those scenes, and then some really unpredictable things started happening. So, maybe? I don't know. I mean, you can't kill her. That's good news.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robin. Thank you for coming here and joining us all in the extreme heat of Phoenix. Speaking of being human, the Being Human panel is also right now. Why are you here and not there? No. What?
Didn't they change it? I thought someone said they changed it. Is that right? They changed it. Question answer. No, apparently you're right though, they did schedule them together. You know, that's weird, right? I want to go to that panel, right? What are they saying? Witwer sucks.
Hi again.
Hi.
Okay, so I was wondering, you have learned so much about this role, correct?
I've learned what now?
What have you learned throughout this role? Because
Lines. Lots of, too many of them.
like when I watched the first episode and then I watched a previous episode, you have changed so much in your character and in your acting. I was just wondering, what is the best thing that you've learned?
The coolest thing about how we started that series was that we didn't do a pilot. That was the coolest thing about it. I've done some pilots, and the problem is that everyone, the writers, the director, the producers, and the actors are all trying to show you something. They're all trying to be like, hey, check it out. This is why you should pick up our show and not another show, because I'm flashy. Check out my jazz hands, you know. It's a real problem, because you're not necessarily approaching the material as honestly as you could be. Now, with Being Human, there was no pilot. It was just, we're doing 13 episodes. It's like, great. So in the first episode, in the second episode, third episode, I felt no pressure to show anyone anything. I just felt like, no. If I show too much to begin with, what's to learn about this guy later? So if he was going to be funny, the only way he was going to be funny is if he played a straight man to Josh, and he was annoyed with him, and that would be funny, but that was it. If he was going to smile, it was going to only be in the blood den when he was hopped up on heroin, you know? Those types of things. those are choices that you can make when you don't do a pilot. You can say, no, I'm not going to show you anything. I'll take my time and I'll show you when it's right. So that was, and so over the seasons, you get to add more and more to the character, and in a weird way, bring more of my sense of humor into Aiden, because I figured if he's living with those two screwballs, he'd start picking up on their humor a little bit. There's something about Aiden that we've discovered that we try not to make too obvious, but it's that he's a total pop culture geek. For example, there was a comment in the second season where he was saying something about, he said something to Sally, he said, hey, go down the hall, there's a 90210 marathon. And the line was, I think Donna Martin is about to graduate. And I suggested to the writers, I'm like, screw that, let's go the full 9. Let's have Aiden go, Donna Martin graduates. Because that's weird, right? A 260-year-old vampire who's totally into that stuff, but he doesn't want to tell anyone about it. But he trusts Sally,
And I just want to say you were super gorgeous.
Yeah! What's up?
So my first role with you is actually when you played Doomsday in Smallville. My question is, how did you go from playing, the good guy, kind of hitting on Chloe, kind of there, and then shifting to the bad guy? How did you go, how do you...
Well, funny enough, Doomsday is kind of an Aiden prototype, because it was the same casting director for both projects. And I guess, as I've been told, they'd gone through, as they told me, hundreds of guys. They'd auditioned hundreds of guys, and they weren't able to find Aiden. And then the casting director said, okay, so wait a second, let me get this straight. We've been looking for a guy who's a good guy, but is a monster and doesn't want to be. I think I got the guy. I think I know a guy who's already done this. I think if you watch Smallville, you can see the beginnings of the Aiden character. I mean, he's not funny like Aiden can be, but we didn't have a lot of time for humor with all the people that were getting killed on that show. But yeah, that's definitely, it's funny that you liken those two characters together, because that's sort of how it happened. They called me up saying, hey, when did you do that again? And I said, well, can we do it different? They're like, sure. I'm like, okay, you got it. Deal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello. My question is, when they have you go vampire and the eyes go completely black or blood red or whatever it is, it's kind of hard to tell. Do they actually give you contacts for that, or is it all CGI?
It's just something I did in the audition. They were really
Can you do a spot now then?
it's really painful for you, because I ended up slaughtering a bunch of people. They went through 3 casting directors. No, it's CGI, and then when it doesn't need to be CGI, when you don't the changeover, it's just contacts. In some cases, it's half CGI and half contacts, because at one point, for some reason, we couldn't get one of the lenses to fit right. And this is a scene in the 3rd season where my character wakes up from a dream and looks at it. I don't want to spoil. I know some of you haven't seen the 3rd season yet, but there's a kid in the hospital, and I look at him, and he maybe looks at me. And one of those is actually CG. And you would never tell. I couldn't tell which one is CG. We have really good CGI people.
Hello. With the recent acquisition of Lucasfilm by Disney and the cancellation of Clone Wars and how far they recorded in advance, was there any other arcs that you did with Darth Maul being that you survived the last season?
No, that was it. That was all we had done. I do know a lot about the backs. I know a lot of things. And the thing is, even if I were at liberty to tell you what some of those things are, there are forums now through which some of those stories can come through. I really shouldn't say much more than that. But there's some really, really cool stuff about the backstory and, you know, how these characters figure with these characters and where Mother Talzin fits in with all that stuff. You know, and so yeah, it's, I wish I could say more, but I think Filoni would kill me. So yeah, but the good news is you know, there are possibilities for some of those stories maybe to be picked up. But really, that is speculation on my part, to be honest. Like, yeah, that's right. This is Buck. I'm thinking about the calling in again from Lucasfilm lawyers. No, but there were a lot of cool things that were planned for sure. You know, I'm just really happy that the fans have been so vocal, because that means a lot to me and to the other actors and to the crew who killed themselves in that show. And hell, I'm certainly happy about 7 Emmy nominations. That's pretty cool. Right? I mean, that show deserves it, man. I mean, I don't know that we're ever going to see that level of production value, you know, and special effects and all that stuff on an animated budget. We're never ever going to see that again, you know, unfortunately. That's what happens when you have an eccentric billionaire at the helm. You know, George Lucas really wanted to push the envelope with a lot of things, and he was there every week. I mean, those are all his stories. So, you know, you want. For those of you who haven't watched the Clone Wars and want more sort of official Star Wars, I mean, that's all George.
Thanks a lot.
Hi, my name's Alex.
Hey.
Thinking back to Force Unleashed and me being a big role player and stuff, what's it like knowing that you played a character that pulled a Star Destroyer out of the sky?
I get a lot of dates at these Comicons. No problem. Hey, baby. Sorry, No, I remember that being a really provocative thing, you know, because like Force Unleashed was kind of conceived of as like a Jedi tall tale, right? So that the audience could decide what really happened and what maybe happened in a different way. But you know, it was all about reimagining all these things and pushing them, you know, pushing everything to 11. So it was a lot of fun.
For the record, you're the Goku of Star Wars now.
I'm the what?
You're the Goku of Star Wars now. It's over 9,000. You're over 9,000.
Sure. I'll take it.
Hi, my name's Shanna, and I
I'm
just
Sam.
wanted to ask, as an actor, and seeing as you did go to Juilliard, do you have any advice for young actors, either for stage or for film and TV?
Yeah, don't be in a hurry. No, I mean, really, I think every actor feels like they're in a hurry to a certain extent, and you're always comparing yourself against friends who are maybe having luck or, you know, more luck than you know, you are at the moment. But these things happen in strange ways. I mean, there's no one. I have a lot of actor friends, a lot of successful actor friends, and there is no one story that is similar to anyone else's story. It's always a very personal path, and a very difficult one, but it's possible. And so long as you're concentrating on the right things, and just basically getting as good as you can. Like, you don't want to rush out there before you're ready and audition before you know what you're doing, because then you're gonna have some doors closed permanently. Like, they remember 3 things. Casting agents remember 3 things. Make that 2 things. Like the 3 things. They'll maybe remember your name, and they will remember whether you were awesome or whether you were just terrible. And if you were just okay, they won't really remember you. Which basically means you have another chance, right? But if you were awesome, you get another chance. And if you were terrible, they'll never see you again. And that's it. So you really want to make sure that you're prepared. You want to take classes. You want to really investigate all these things and feel confident before you start waiting out there. Don't be in a hurry because your friend got a part on something. It doesn't mean anything to your life, you know?
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, with every voice actor that looks like their character from
how would you feel about doing an actual movie?
How much money you got? I mean, you know? I think we could do it for $3,000. No, I would love to. It would be fantastic. The question is, what does Disney want to do, right? And I think they have some very definite plans at this point. But you never know. I mean, you never know what part of that acquisition is going to interest them. So, you know, you never say never when it comes to this stuff. I mean, Darth Maul came back, for God's sakes. What a weird move that was. I mean, I remember, you know, finding out about that and being like, like it was, Dave Filoni says, yeah, he survived. George says he survived. And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, wonderful. And then I saw in the episode, Darth Maul survived. And they show him in the little crystal ball. And I'm just thinking, oh, the poor sap who has to play that role. That's going to suck for him. And then Dave calls me up and it's me. I'm like, oh, great. So, but really, it's, you know what it is? It comes down to this. It's something that me and my buddies call the wrath of, it's the search for Spock rule. That if you do really cool things, no one cares that it's weird that you killed Spock and brought him back in the next movie, right? So with Darth Maul, it was like, oh, you better do some awesome things with this character. And so me and Dave worked very hard on that to try to create something really interesting. I mean, the first part was like, it has to be a major cost because he got cut in half, right? So when you saw him, he had to be like physically different, but also he had to be just mentally gone, just out of his mind. There had to be a real mental cost to what had happened. So what was fun about that was we're like, oh, cool, you know what we're doing? We're showing the audience for the first time, we're showing them the dark side of the Force, like the real deal, without someone strong enough to filter that. You know, without Darth Vader's mask being implacable and you not being able to read what's going on inside his head. This is what's going on inside Darth Vader's head or the Emperor's head, is this madness. And we're now just going to show it to you. So that was fun. We got to do a lot of things in that show that really shed new light on a lot of iconic Star Wars elements.
Hey. Well, actually, first of all, I'm a big fan. I love being human. I love Smallville. I love all the work you've done. But you're a big inspiration for me as well, as far as acting goes. You're known for going from calm to intense really quickly, whether it be this, the last scene you are in Smallville, or the first time we see Darth Maul in the Clone Wars. Do you do anything to prepare to get that intense so quickly?
There are times where you have to do stuff to get your heart pumping. I remember Armand Asante when I was working with him on an independent film. He would just, okay, I'm not going to actually say the word that he said. I'm going to say the word fudge. Right? And no matter what scene you were doing, he would start the scene. If it was an angry scene, he'd just walk around and be like, fudge! So he would do that, and I'd be terrified, right? But then we would have a happy scene together, and he'd be like, oh, you fudge. You fudge. Oh, you fudge. So, that's not how I do it. No, honestly, Armand Asante is one of the most talented actors I have ever worked with. That guy, my God, he's good. He is such a good actor, and I learned a lot by working with him. A lot. But I'll do something similar. I won't swear as much, but I will swear sometimes. I mean, it depends. I mean, you really have to work yourself up. You know, I mean, here's a little piece of information. I was frustrated a little bit with how they were ending Davis's character in Smallville. So I think that's a little bit where that came from. A little bit of the frustration and anger came through in the performance.
Thank you.
Hi, Sam. Thank you for coming to Phoenix. What Hollywood actor would you like the pleasure of working with? Or a Hollywood actress?
Off fudge. Off fudge.
Good question. That's a very good question. Who? What? Clint Eastwood. No, oh God, you know, in terms of the actors that I want to meet, they're all of the older generation, you know, the Daniel Craig's, the Harrison Fords, and all those guys. And I mean, even around the sun, I was like, wow, I get to not only meet, but I get to work with this guy. And David Strathairn is someone that I had a chance to work with. And I know, he's incredible. And it's funny, I have a lot of interest in the older generation of actors because they know a hell of a lot more than we do. And so I'm always looking for shortcuts. So any older distinguished actors that I can, you know, hang out with, I definitely try to be friends. I mean, it's not as mercenary as that. I'm not just trying to, you know, steal their knowledge like some sort of body snatcher or something. But what it is that I appreciate what they've done, and I appreciate how difficult it is and how easy they make it look. Jeff Bridges, for example. There's an actor who, that's a guy who has always made it look so easy, you know? But think about all the actors out there, and most actors will stumble. Most actors will have a performance that isn't quite up to snuff. I can't think of a one for Jeff Bridges. That guy has been authentic all the way through his very long career.
Thank you.
Hey, Sam. Hey. It seems to me that a lot of Aiden's motivation seems to be him trying to make up for past wrongdoings. And the more he seems to try to help, the more he seems to screw stuff up. What do you feel about it?
You're right.
I got that.
No, it's true. I mean, we had a meeting with the writers recently, and I was bringing up the fact that, like, guys, we really do, in some way, need to address why this guy hasn't offed himself. You know, we brought it up in season 1. Remember that Reverend guy? And he's like, hey, you keep saying about how tortured you are. If you want to end it, hey, I'll end it right now. And he takes that steak. And then Aiden goes, okay, I'm going to beat your teeth in now, buddy. Which is, by the way, a little side note. Being Human, when we were shooting the first season, I mean, there's an alternate version of that series, especially in the first season, that you could cut together. A very Fight Club, very hard to watch version of the show, because we were shooting like that scene in specific where the Reverend, that Reverend vampire who's pulling all kinds of problems in the hospital. I mean, we shot graphically me eating his teeth. Many stages. It was awful to look at when we were doing it. So, you know, I often think, like, wouldn't it be fun to go back and recut some of those episodes and put some of that material back in, or do some of the things that we talked about but weren't allowed to do. But then we just lose all our fans and horrifying. but yeah, in terms of Aiden being dangerous, yeah, we addressed it this year in a writer meeting where we were saying, man, every year this guy's alive, he knows at least 3 to 20 people are going to die. So we should probably address it. And I had some thoughts about how we could address it, and so did they. So we'll see. We'll see what comes out.
Stop helping.
Stop helping. That's right.
Hi, Sam.
Hi.
My name's Chase.
Hi, Chase.
And I've been a big fan. I love Starkiller. Loved it. I've always loved watching you go back and forth between the characters and how you change, like the killer with Dexter, you know, and then Starkiller and have you ever had a role that you wanted to take on, you know, that encompassed something that you wanted to do as an actor? That you haven't gotten a chance to do.
That I haven't gotten a chance to do. Yeah, I imagine there are a bunch of those. You know, weirdly, I've had more opportunity than people have seen, because not everything that you do necessarily makes it, you know. I've done some independent films where I did one where I was more like the Sam Huntington character, which was fun, you know, a little bit more off kilter and totally out of my mind. Yeah, so I would love to do that and have it seen. there are a lot of, yeah, I mean, the thing with an actor is like, you know, you're always drawing from some side of their personality. And yeah, there are some sides of my personality that I'd like to draw from a little bit more. I mean, with Aiden, for example, in season 3, we made him goofier than we've ever seen him, especially around the cat character. But we had to be very careful not to go too far into Sam Huntington territory, because that's his turf. And furthermore, we don't want to destroy the mystique of the Aiden character. So we can only have him get, you know, we can have him get goofy here and there. You know, don't give him garlic, that's bad. But, you know, but yeah, there are a lot of things that I'd like to do.
Cool. Thank you very much for sharing your time with us.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Witwer, my name is Danny.
Hey, Danny.
My question is, after Force Unleashed ended and the sequel was being announced, were you first approached about coming back, or were they going to do a different storyline? And when you came back, how was the process different from the first time?
Well, it's funny because I could probably answer more of this question now after the Disney acquisition than I could even several months ago. Because, you know, there were forces of that company that weren't prepared to have Force Unleashed be the hit that it was, frankly. And didn't necessarily have the resolve that they should have. You know, I'll put it to you this way. If a project comes out and in its opening months it sells 7 million copies and has since sold many, many millions more, and that is a mega hit by any game company standards. And any game company that wasn't necessarily hindered by certain corporate elements would double down on the sequel. And they didn't. They gave us very, very little time to do that one. And you know, you're getting a real honest answer there. And I think, I think I'm at liberty to say this because those elements of the company are long gone. They were gone before the Disney acquisition. And this isn't George Lucas I'm talking about. Like, he was always very supportive and stuff. But there were people who were undermining his vision, unfortunately. And thankfully he took care of that. So, you know, that's the good news there.
Thank you for coming to Comicon.
Yeah, thank you. CK421, why aren't you at your post?
I do have to kill so many stormtroopers.
It's nothing against your demographic. It's simply that a man has a job to do, and you know, it's look. I'll tell you what. The frown on your helmet isn't helping matters. Maybe paint a little smile, and you'll get a little bit more, you know, sympathy. You guys are a public relations nightmare. Seriously, you guys need to talk to your emperor and get, you know, friendlier outfits.
I thought you were the emperor as well.
Your insolence will be your undoing.
Spanish Inquisition.
So this is happening.
Are you expecting us?
What's up?
Are you expecting us?
Well, not entirely.
Spanish transition. All seriousness, thanks for coming. You're freaking awesome. I want to talk about your acting process with Sam Huntington. Like, he seems like a guy that's like really, what's the word?
Nightmare.
Yeah. He makes it up on the spot, it seems like. Does he do that at all? And if so, how do you like work off of him? Because whenever you have the scenes with your guys together, it looks like you're having so much fun.
Yeah, we all do. We're all coming up with weird stuff to say to each other. And Sam Huntington and Megan Rath and Kristen Hager are three of the most professional and talented and sharp actors you will ever meet. And not to mention, very, very nice, funny people. I mean, they're the reason that I go to work. I mean, they're the reason I show up. They're fantastic.
Oh, and just one thing, like if you could say it, my favorite line isn't the Emperor line from The Force Unleashed. It's actually when you wake up after Vader tosses you out the window and you just say, you're all angry. You think you could say that?
Well, what did he say?
He goes, something like that, but the way you say it.
You want me to scream into a microphone? You killed me.
You killed me!
Thank you.
Have you ever been typecast for a specific role that has been a complete 180 from the regular roles that you normally do?
I've been typecast for roles that I've done a lot of, for sure. But you know, not for. No one's ever pulled me in for a role that I was like, oh, I have no idea how to do this. I mean, secretly, I'll take roles and go, I don't know how to do this. Being human, I didn't know how to do that. Being human's tricky, right? Because we couldn't rely on the British tone because they wanted to do something different for our version. Our version, like the British tone has comedically an advantage because when they wanted to get comedic, they got broad, a little bit bigger. And that's certainly one way you can do it. With our version, they wanted to play it very straight. So you know, it's like, if you ask me, hey Sam, I want you to be funny in my show, and you can be as big as you want to be and just be ridiculous. But I can do that, sure. Or someone can say, hey Sam, we want you to be really serious, and we want you to be really dramatic. And I'd be like, okay, I can do that. But I've never been asked, until Being Human, hey Sam, we want you to arrive, we want you to be dead serious, and somehow make it funny. Thanks guys, you know, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, Huntington had the ability to be a little bit of a broader character at first and be a little bit more awkward, but they wanted my character to be funny as well. And I reasoned the best way to start doing that was just to play straight man to Huntington and be just irritated with him. Because that's how I was when I met him. He sits down next to me in the audition. He's like, hey everybody, I'm Sam Huntington! And then he, the first thing he does, he goes, hey, oh hey, you're Sam, I'm Sam, hey, are you going gray? No, take a closer look. He's like, oh no, you're not, yeah, but thanks for doing that here. And I glanced over at the producers, and they were watching this, like, really intently. And I was just like, yeah, this guy. And that was exactly what they needed for the show. Is for me to be like, hey, and I'm like, okay, all right, calm down. And then Megan Rath, you know, as another layer on top of that, because once me and Huntington had auditioned together several times, and then Megan Rath comes in, she's like, I'm just so excited to meet you guys, and we're like, oh. So what's funny is what you see in those episodes is what happened to us in our audition process. Well, one of the tricks that we had to do is they didn't allow us to have the banter chemistry at first. Because we would be doing scenes and they're like, guys, the chemistry is too much, the banter is too much. And we said, well, yeah, but we saw the first episode of the British series, that's what they're doing. And they're like, yeah, but in the British series, you don't really know how long they've been in that house. In this series, we know exactly how long you've been in here. You've been a day. You guys don't know each other. So you have to get to know each other. By episode 6 or 7, we'll let you banter, but like not now. It has to be a little bit still. So.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, it's time for this. Okay, what do you prefer, like normal acting or voice acting?
Both. Both are tough. Both are very difficult. Both I, only have a limited grasp of, really. I mean, there are some people that have said for voice actors, like, yeah, you just show up and make a funny voice. And it's like, yeah, that's all you want it to be. Sure, fine. If you want to suck, cool. No, but some people are really good at that. Some people actually can make that work. In my case, if you're going to make someone care about it, if you're going to bring some depth to the character, you do have to put as much work into it as you do any on-camera gig. The only difference is that you can look like a total soul doing it, and no one cares. It's fine. You can just be an idiot visually.
All right, thank you.
Nice.
All right, too tall for this thing. But Sam, I know you've talked a lot about Clone Wars already. An awesome show, by the way. I loved it, and congrats on the Emmy nomination. Because Darth Maul, I thought you did an awesome job with that. But I wanted to ask you specifically about the Star Wars Rebels show that's just been announced, and like I said, you kind of already mentioned this, but what are the possibilities that we could maybe see? Since the show takes place in between episodes 3 and 4, that we could see you come back as the Emperor again, and or have Starkiller in some episodes, and or get some conclusion to the Darth Maul storyline.
Drink some vodka.
Look, I mean, I think anything's possible. I don't,
well, then would you want to come back and do that?
No. Yeah, sure. I'll do it. I mean, it's look, any opportunity to help out Dave with anything that he needs, I'm happy to do it. I mean, Dave Filoni is really the real deal. There is not a better person for his position at that company. I mean, he carried the torch. It's how long since the last one came out? Was it 6 or 5? Or 5? Oh, 5? It's a while since the last movie, and yet Star Wars is like stronger than ever. Why is that? I think the Clone Wars is the reason that Disney had to shell out $4 billion as opposed to maybe $2 billion. I mean, it kept the fan base alive and really fed them. And so did Force Unleashed. At the time that it was on. So, but Filoni is absolutely the real deal. And when he gets like a shot at a feature or something, I want to be there. So in order to do that, I gotta kiss his ass right now. You listening, Dave? and no, I would do anything that he asked. If he wanted me to come and do whatever, I would do it.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Sam, my name's Josh. Huge fan of Star Wars Force Unleashed. My favorite.
So you're Batman.
Yeah, it took half of the costume off.
Josh.
There's hell in there.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was this other guy. Right. Yeah. Huge fan, by the way. A huge fan. The whole thing, the nuclear bomb over Gotham, that was great work.
Fix that all the time.
Yeah, autopilot.
But yeah, Starkiller is my favorite Star Wars character of all time. Just wondering if you have any idea, have you been approached about doing a third of Force Unleashed? Any idea that's maybe going to happen?
There's been whispers around the company over the years, but it's really all up to Disney and what their priorities are. And right now, I think their priority is making sure that episode 7 is as good as it possibly can be. And I think that is a worthy priority. I think that there's always an opportunity to go back, but I think the first thing that needs to be taken care of is that Star Wars Episode 7. And I think that all roads need to lead to that right now. After that, and after that's a success, then I think you can do whatever you want, including Force Unleashed 3. Yeah, thank you, sir.
What's up, Starkiller?
What up, man?
I had a question. If Warner Brothers came to you to take on the role of Dark Knight in the next Batman reboot and Justice League, would you do it?
Sure.
Christian Bale.
You know what I would? You know how they're really anxious about this whole Justice League movie, and maybe to the point of impatience. Like you guys need to earn it, like they did with Marvel. One way they can earn it is hire Michael Keaton to play like the Dark Knight Returns version of that character. You know, it's so long as Man of Steel works, bring Michael Keaton in as an older, he hasn't been Batman for years, and have have something like that happen where there's at least an established, successful film continuity, you know? And then if he won't do it, I'll do it.
Answer somebody's question earlier about the Being Human panel. It's at 6 p.m.
6 p.m., guys.
Yeah.
6 p.m.
Thank you.
You're welcome, guys.
Hi.
Hey.
I have a question that's been bothering me for a long time. First, you know your big kitty got really old?
Mm-hmm.
Is that because of the world flood?
Is it because of what?
Werewolf flood.
Oh, yes.
I knew it.
It's, Kenny's, I don't know that Kenny's story is over just yet. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Connor Price again because he's just an amazing actor, really fun to have on the set.
So am I.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel a lot better now.
Yeah, no, it's a conundrum for sure. The thing that I'm worried about is, like, vampires can't reproduce. They're probably in some trouble right now, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
Bye.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Hey, Sam.
Yo.
Hey, Sam, looking good.
Thanks, man. Just for you.
So, well, I don't really have too serious a question, but what happened in Smallville? Wasn't there talk about you being Zod? I remember we saw that back picture of you, I believe it was you, with the tattoo. What happened?
Yeah, well, it's, no, basically, there was some talk that I would do that. I felt like that was painting themselves into a corner. Because Davis Bloom at this point is a notorious serial killer around the city, and his likeness has been everywhere. So how does this guy show up, and how does he walk one step in the city without people going, wait, that's Davis Bloom, let's take him in, and other issues like that. So I raised those concerns.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
They still came up with the idea, I believe, right?
What's that?
They still came up with the idea, though.
Yes, they did. They did. Well, it was simply, they had some ideas, and me and my people had some concerns about them, and we voiced them, basically. But it was nice of them, I think. Yeah, certainly.
They just love you, man. I guess that's it. You have a good day. And
Yeah. We can finish off these people, right?
Yeah,
we talk fast.
Of course.
Great. Hi.
Seeing that Being Human is also a BBC show,
It's what?
was there feel the need to outdo them or a little competition or anything?
No, not really. No, because why would we? Our intention was to be a complementary piece to that, to be 3 different characters who are dealing with similar issues elsewhere. And for that reason, we didn't watch the BBC series when we were shooting season 1. Now, after season 1, I bought everyone the Blu-ray box set. After season 1, what's that? Yeah, I'm drunk. I'm totally drunk. I have no idea where I am. Who are you people? But I got everyone the Blu-ray box sets, and we've been fans ever since. I love their series, and it's our writers are in the same boat. While they do this series, they can't really watch that series. And then, funny enough, I got a nice email from Toby Whithouse, who is now catching up on our series because he's done with his, and he said some very, very nice things. It's all part of the same family. When we were getting on our feet, Toby and Rob Percy were very helpful in creating our show, helping create our show. So this isn't like a mixed space situation, you know what I mean? Like this isn't like McG when he tried to do Spaced. Do you guys know about this? Yeah, McG tried to do Spaced, and you know, and they were saying things like, "Hey, from the makers of Shaun of the Dead," and Simon Pegg's like reading this on the internet, going like, "From what? Wait, what? We have nothing to do with this." So you know, there's a funny. Okay, I'm going to tell a story about this. Simon told me this, that when this all went down, and McG was remaking Space, and he said, from the makers of Shaun of the Dead, and Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright were like, no way, that's not us. No one talked to us, no one asked us nothing. So McG was doing some damage control, and he actually called up people and said, listen, I'm sorry it went down like that, we should have called you at first. And he was talking to Edgar Wright, and he's like, look man, I totally get how you feel about this space thing. I mean, putting myself in your shoes, I would feel the same way if someone were to remake Charlie's Angels. And Edgar Wright's like, my God, he out-stupid me. There's no response. You can't respond to that. Well, you got it. You got me. Checkmate, you know, so. Yeah. Thanks. I'll answer fast. Yes.
Hey Sam.
Hey.
What was it like working on Dexter?
Awesome. Really fun. It was a good time because I get to, you know, play something completely different from myself. And, Michael C. Hall was cool, and everyone on the set was very nice. It was exciting because no one knew what that show was at the time. It hadn't aired yet. So I was like, Dexter, sequel to Webster. This is cool. But it was really fun, especially to see the final product. I was like, oh, this is a really good show. Cool, I got lucky.
Thanks.
So, thank you. Hey.
Just one question is, Jedi or Sith?
Just hey man, they both have lightsabers. The Sith dress cooler, but the Jedi sleep better at night. So right on. Guys, thank you.
Again, everyone, someone great.
Thank you.